Florida, a land of sunshine and sand, a place where the Everglades breathe and the trees remember things we'd rather forget. It's easy to get lost in that wild beauty, easy to let your guard down when the air is thick and the roads get quiet. But some who wander in never come back the same. What follows are 4 stories, 4 different people, 4 unsettling encounters in the forests of Florida and swamps of Alligator Alley. A land where creatures don't just stalk in shadows, they whisper your name. You'll hear it in their own words, raw, unfiltered, and shaken. Because when night falls in the backwoods of Florida, it's not the gators you have to fear. Welcome to Weird Encounters, a place where the ordinary fades into shadow and the unexplainable comes alive. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and become part of our ever-growing community of the curious. Now prepare yourself, because what you are about to hear is not for the faint of heart. This email came from a man who lost his way while hiking and fishing deep into the backcountry just south of Alligator Alley, an endless sprawl of sawgrass, cypress, and blackwater channels that few people truly understand. His plan was simple, a few days of solitude with a rod, a hammock, and the wild. But something went very wrong. Greetings. I hope my encounter is good enough to go on your YouTube channel. I have been contemplating this for weeks. Thought maybe it would fade. That's what people say, right? But it hasn't. It's not going away. It's still right here, stuck in the back of my head. I hear it in the quiet, feel it sometimes when I'm alone in my garage, even though I know I'm home. This happened down near Big Cypress. I started at the end of a dirt pull-off on the Turner Riverside, a spot I've used before, just south of Alligator Alley, west of the Miccosukee Reservation. I'd planned a 2-day solo hiking and fishing trip through some backwater fingers. I wasn't looking for trophy base or anything, just a little break. No cell signal, no noise, that kind of quiet. I brought my 6-weight fly rod, a backpack hammock, a machete, and my GPS. I had a map too. I always do, folded up in a freezer bag. I'm not new to this. I fished the L28, I camped off Loop Road, even done a few weekends in the Picayune Strand without issue. I like it out there. Day 1 was good. Caught 2 large fish and a decent little bowfin. Swamp was breathing right. Frogs croaking, birds cutting the air in low swoops, even saw a panther print that made me stop and smile. You don't see those often. I followed a game trail deeper than I usually go, past this patch of dwarf cypress where the ground felt soft in a weird way. I thought maybe I'd crossed into an old burned area because the trees started thinning and everything took on this gray color. That's when the GPS quit. I'm not exaggerating. 1 second it was tracking fine, next second, dead screen. I had fresh batteries, no warning, no fade, just off. I smacked it a few times, checked the batteries, even swapped them out. Nothing. It was fine, I told myself. I had the map. I'm good with direction. I figured I'd just trace my route back out to the canal and head north to the road. That was maybe 2 hours before sunset. But something happened. I don't know what happened, but I couldn't find the canal again. I'd marked a big tree with a bright blue bandana tied to the trunk. Always do that when I go deeper than a mile or so. And it was gone, or moved. I can't explain it. I walked in what should have been a straight line. I even used my compass. Still, nothing looked familiar. The sky was red behind me, and the woods started closing in. The air turned still, no bugs, no birds. It hit me then that I wasn't just lost. I was alone, really alone, and not in the good way. I picked up the pace. Started sweating. I know panic doesn't help, but it was like the deeper I went, the more the trees started pressing in, like a tunnel forming in the cypress. The ground was getting soggier. I slipped more than once. My boot got stuck in a root knot, and I had to yank it out, which tore the sole halfway off. I was limping now. Sun was down, fast. Then I heard it. Not big, not loud, just a plop, like something stepping out of water. I stopped cold. Turned around. Nothing there. I called out. Nothing. Then another plop, this time behind me. I spun again. Saw ripples in a black pool about 20 feet off. No gator trail, no bubbles, but it wasn't just water. It was thicker, like oil. I started backing away, kept my hand on the machete. I'm not a coward, but I don't mess with things I don't understand. I kept walking, slow, quiet. But whatever it was, it followed. Always just behind, just out of sight. The whispering started about an hour later. It came with the fog, low, dense, and moving faster than fog should move. I heard it curling through the trees, first one voice, then two, then more, not yelling, not talking, just whispering, like a swarm of voices with no bodies. Couldn't tell what they were saying, but I caught parts. My name, my mom's voice, then laughter, high-pitched and wet, like someone laughing while gargling water. I finally found a dry patch under a leaning sable palm. Threw up the hammock as fast as I could, tied it low to the ground so I'd be hidden. No fire, no light. I curled up with my pack over me like a shield and tried not to make a sound. That's when it got close. I heard the footsteps, not running, not stomping, just one slow step at a time, water squelching underfoot. It stopped near the hammock, maybe 10 feet away. I held my breath so long I nearly passed out. It stood there for what felt like an hour. Then it let out this sound. I'll never forget it. It wasn't a growl, it was like a gurgle, but from a throat that shouldn't still be breathing. Bubbly and ragged. Then the whispering started again, right up close. It said something like, "Come down or let us in." I don't know. I shut my eyes and prayed. I mean that. I actually prayed. It left before sunrise. Or maybe it didn't leave and I just stopped hearing it. I walked all day after that. No food, no water. My lips cracked. I was shivering even though it was hot. I started seeing things out of the corner of my eye, shapes darting behind trees. At one point, I looked down and saw prints next to mine. Barefoot, long toes, webbed. When I finally heard voices, real voices, I thought I'd gone crazy. But there they were, two men in a flat-bottom John boat, checking crab traps in a channel not far from the Lostman's River. I stumbled out onto the bank and collapsed. One of them hauled me in while the other just kept looking around like he expected something to follow. They gave me water, some jerky, and a tarp to sit on. I tried to explain, but I barely had a voice left. One of them, older guy named Curtis, just nodded. He didn't look shocked. Told me I'd found the part of the swamp the locals don't talk about. Said the deep thing lives back there. Said it doesn't like when people stay past dark. He told me a Miccosukee girl disappeared out there in '93. They found her boots, that's all. A guy from Naples swears he lost 4 hours after hearing voices in the fog. Showed up at a ranger station with no pants and no memory. They dropped me at the Highway 29 boat ramp. I never saw them again. Since then, I've had dreams. Always of the trees breathing, the fog rolling in, that gurgling whisper circling around me like smoke. I don't even fish anymore. I tried once. I got 5 minutes into tying a leader and started shaking so bad I had to stop. I know this sounds insane, but I swear on my life, something's out there. It doesn't walk like us, doesn't live like us, but it watches. And it waits. And if you get lost, really lost, it comes for you. In the deep swamps of the Florida Everglades, the stillness of the water masks something ancient, something watching. A man's quiet escape into the backcountry for a solo weekend of fishing and reflection becomes something far more sinister. Locals have a name for it: Skunk Ape. But in the dark, with no help coming, names don't matter. What matters is staying alive. And this is that man's story. Hello, Weird Encounters. Thanks for reading my story. I don't really know how to start this, or if I even should, but it's been eating at me for weeks now, but I hope you share this on your YouTube channel. Just please keep my name anonymous. I hope someone's experienced something like this before and can provide some additional information. I was out near the Loop Road in Big Cypress, way out, where there's barely any traffic even in the day. It runs parallel to the Tamiami Trail, but once you're out past the 20-mile bend, you don't see many folks. It was supposed to be a solo trip. Just me, my Coleman tent, and a little John boat I dragged out to hit some of the oxbows that split off the Turner River. I grew up in Homestead, so I know the Glades. I've been out there more times than I can count, even took a few buddies frog gigging back in high school. But this time was different. It was late May, hot and thick like soup out there. You sweat just from thinking. First night was normal, except the bugs were worse than usual. Even with the bug repellent, they still swarmed like crazy. I had a little fire going near the waterline, just enough to keep some of the mosquitoes away and for a bit of light. The weird thing started with the smell. I know the Everglades has a smell. It's natural, a kind of rot and mud and life cooking under the sun. But this was different. It smelled like a wet dog, burnt hair, and trash left out in the sun for too long. That night, I kept hearing something big just outside the glow of the fire. Not a raccoon or gator. I know those sounds. This was heavier, thudding, almost rhythmic. I chalked it up to a hog, maybe even a black bear. We've been seeing more of those lately down south. But still, it never made itself known. Just stayed out past the trees, just far enough I couldn't see it, but I could hear it. Breathing. I swear it was like labored breathing, deep wheezing inhales. Then silence, then a low growl. Not canine, not feline either. I didn't sleep much. Second night, that's when things really went to hell. I had taken the boat out that day and found a good spot near a mangrove cluster with a bunch of gar breaking the surface. While I was fishing, I noticed the birds had gone quiet. That's another thing you learn out here. The swamp is always alive. Frogs, bugs, birds. When it goes silent, something's off. I didn't see it then, but I felt it. Like being watched. You ever had that? Like your skin knows before your brain does. I packed up quick and got back to camp. That smell hit me again before I even saw the tent. I thought maybe a raccoon got into my cooler. But the cooler was untouched. What was messed up was the back of the tent. Something had clawed through it. 3 long slashes, deep enough to tear the canvas clean. My gear was still there. But something had clearly been there. I found footprints too, near the mud line. I got a picture on my phone. Not a bear. Too narrow. Too long. 5 toes. Human-looking, but wrong. Bigger than my own boot, maybe 17 inches easy. That night was the worst. I stayed awake, shotgun loaded. I don't usually bring it out unless I know there are hogs, but I wasn't taking chances. Around 3 a.m. I heard it. First, a snort, then heavy steps, like it was circling the camp. I didn't move, I didn't even breathe. Then something touched the side of my tent. Not hard, like a swipe, but slow, like fingers brushing against it. I pointed the gun at the wall and yelled, but it didn't move. It didn't even flinch. Just stood there, breathing. Then it let out a moan. I don't know how else to describe it. Low, long, drawn out, like a man in pain, but also animal. Then it laughed. Or at least it sounded like a laugh, high-pitched and broken. I stayed frozen until the sun came up. When I came out, it was gone, but the smell lingered. I packed and left that morning. Didn't even roll up the tent. Just shoved it all in the truck and drove until I hit a diner in Ochapee. I asked the waitress if she ever heard anything weird out on Loop Road. She just nodded like it wasn't anything new. Said some nights, the locals see something crossing the road, usually on 2 legs. Hairy. Smells like a dumpster fire. A few call it the Skunk Ape. Now I always thought that was just Everglades talk. Like the stories old man Rudy used to tell back when I worked part-time at the bait shop near Trail Lakes. He'd always say there was a thing in the swamp that stole chickens and sometimes mimicked voices at night. He said it followed him back in the 70s when he was hunting near Monroe Station, walked behind him for over 2 miles but never attacked. He'd swear up and down it wasn't an animal, but I figured it was just stories. Not anymore. A buddy of mine who does drone work for the Wildlife Service said there are areas south of Loop Road, near Lostman's River, where the gators act strange, don't bask, and don't feed right. One biologist found a half-eaten wild pig stashed high up in a tree near one of the deeper marshes. That's not normal. Panthers don't do that. Gators sure as hell don't. I don't know what I saw. I don't know what followed me. But it was real. And it wasn't a bear. It walked upright. It laughed. It didn't fear me, even with a shotgun in hand. I've been out in those swamps my whole life. I've seen snakes as thick as your leg, gators longer than my truck, but nothing, and I mean nothing, has ever made me feel like prey before. This story comes from a man who thought he was just passing through, just taking the scenic route down through northern Florida's forgotten backroads on his way to visit an old friend in Gainesville. The story he shares is unlike the others we've received. It's not about a creature. It's about a family. A bloodline cursed or possessed, depending who you ask. I wasn't sure where to even send something like this, but I saw your site and figured maybe someone would believe me. I haven't told anyone else, not even my brother. He already thinks I'm on edge since the divorce. Maybe I am. But that's not what this is. What I saw out there, it was real. It was evil. And it wasn't just one thing. It was a whole damn family. This was back in early March. I was driving south from Valdosta on my way to Gainesville to visit an old army buddy who was sick. I took a long way, decided to cut through the Osceola National Forest instead of sticking to I-75. There's this stretch of old forest roads that runs through the swampier part near Olustee and out toward the Suwannee River. It's peaceful, or it used to be. No cell signal for most of it, but I like that. About 20 miles in, my truck overheated. Steam poured out from under the hood like something had exploded. No warning, just redlined and died. I coasted into this dirt pull-off near a drainage ditch full of reeds and bullfrogs. I had water in the back, so I figured I'd let it cool, refill it, and be on my way. That's when I saw the house. It was maybe 200 yards off the road, tucked back behind a wall of mossy oaks and palmetto. Not a regular house, more like a compound, old and sagging, with additions built on top of additions. Tin roofs stacked like scales, window shutters missing or hanging sideways. There was smoke coming from the chimney. Smelled like burnt hair and grease. I figured maybe they had a phone or could at least help me find a ranger station. I crossed the ditch and made my way up through the woods, but the closer I got, the more wrong it felt. The trees were too quiet, like they were watching. The ground had all these shallow holes dug into it, like something had been rooting or burying things. And hanging from the branches, no joke, were bones, tied up with red string, little ones. Bird bones, maybe, but some were longer. When I reached the edge of the clearing, I saw them. 4 or 5 people, barefoot, dirty, skin looked like tree bark. One was rocking on the porch, carving something into a stick with what looked like a fillet knife. Another was crouched by a barrel, stirring it with a long wooden pole. I couldn't tell what was inside, but it smelled rotten. Sweet and rotted. I should have turned around right then. I should have just walked back to the road and hoofed it. But before I could move, one of them looked up. A woman. Stringy hair, eyes like a dead fish. She tilted her head, then stood, said something to the others in a voice that didn't sound human, like her throat was full of mud. Then the others stood too, all at once. I didn't even speak. I just raised my hand in some dumb half-wave and said something like, "Truck broke down" or "Need help." One of them nodded slowly and pointed to the house. I followed like a fool, like a stupid, tired fool who wanted out of the heat and didn't trust his gut when it screamed, "Get out." Inside, it was worse. The walls were covered in drawings, charcoal maybe, or something darker. Circles, eyes, a symbol that looked like a star with a slit through it. There were jars on every shelf, full of meat I couldn't identify. Jars that twitched sometimes. They sat me down at a table made of tree stumps and planks. Offered me water that smelled like copper. I didn't drink it. The man who seemed like the father, huge guy with gray teeth and this scar down the middle of his chest, just stared. Didn't blink. He said they'd seen me coming in the bones. I didn't know what that meant. I laughed a little. He didn't. Then the girl, the one who first saw me, started whispering. Not to me, to something. Her head turned slightly like she was listening for an answer. I swear to God, her eyes went black. All black. No white, no iris. Like a goat, but worse. She said, "It's almost time," and smiled. That smile, like she'd already tasted me. I stood up, said I should get back to the truck. They didn't stop me. But as I stepped out the front door, I saw them lining up on the porch, just standing there, watching me leave. One of them raised their hand, and I saw they had 6 fingers. All of them were whispering now. I couldn't hear the words, but I felt them in me, like they were crawling inside my head. I ran, didn't look back, fell into the ditch and scraped my knees wide open, but I didn't stop. When I got back to the truck, it started. Just like that. Turned over like nothing had ever been wrong. Engine purred, radio kicked on with a loud hiss of static. And then, a voice, not a song, a voice, deep, speaking words I don't think were English. I shut it off, drove 40 miles with the radio off and the windows down, shaking. Later, I asked around at a gas station near Lake City. The clerk was older, wore a hat with a Confederate flag on it, barely looked up when I told him what I saw. Said I must have stumbled onto the Harlow's land. Said they'd been out there since the 1800s. Used to be normal, then started changing. Something about a preacher from Georgia who brought dark things with him. Said they invited something in, and now it won't leave. Said there's a reason rangers don't map that section of forest. He told me a story about a fire in the 60s that was supposed to burn the place out. Whole county blamed it on lightning. But when they got there, nothing had burned. Not a single leaf. Just smoke and bones and flies. I asked if anyone had gone back. He just laughed. Said, "You're the first person I met who saw him and came back." I don't know what's out there. I don't think it's just people. I think it's older than people. I think that family, they're just hosts. Something's inside them, controlling them. The Florida Everglades hide many things beneath their tangled green curtain. Alligators, panthers, stories passed from generation to generation about something far older and far more dangerous. In the following email, a lifelong hunter from Central Florida shares a disturbing experience that took place on a multi-day hog hunt gone wrong. Hi, Weird Encounters. So, I've been hunting since I was 10. I grew up in Bartow, just outside of Lakeland, and most of my weekends were spent with my dad out in the Green Swamp WMA or down near Fish Heating Creek. We always heard stories. My uncle used to tell us about glowing eyes in the trees and how if you hear a woman crying in the swamp but can't see her, you run. But you don't really believe it. You think it's just camp talk to keep you close. So this all happened back in mid-November. That time of year when the air gets a little crisp in the mornings and the hogs are moving. I'd been planning this hunt for a couple weeks with my buddy Clay. We were going to hit an area just outside of Big Cypress, but north of the typical tourist trails, old service roads near the Bear Island unit. Clay ended up bailing last minute, said his kid got sick, so I figured I'd go solo. I've done that plenty of times. I had a tree stand rigged on a cypress ridge near a patch of palmetto where I'd seen a hog sign before. I brought my 308, some jerky, and a cooler with beer and ice. Real simple trip. First 2 days were quiet. I saw tracks, scat, but no pigs. A couple turkey vultures circling something deeper in the brush. But that's normal. You don't think twice. But on the third night, things got very weird. It started with the wind. Everything just stopped. I was sitting by the fire, cleaning my rifle, when I noticed the flames weren't moving, not even flickering, like the whole world took a breath and forgot to let it out. You'd think it would be peaceful, but it wasn't. It was wrong, like the woods were holding their breath. Then I heard something behind me. Not loud, just the faintest crunch. I spun around, shined my flashlight, but there was nothing there. Just palmetto and cypress knees. I wrote it off as a raccoon or armadillo, went back to the fire, but I didn't sit down. Couldn't. I started feeling watched, real heavy, like something had its eyes on the back of my neck. That's when I saw it. Up in a tree, maybe 20 feet off the ground, eyes reflecting back at me like yellow coals. Not wide apart like a raccoon, narrow, focused, like a person, but higher than a man could get without gear. It blinked slow. Then it moved, dropped down out of the tree without a sound, didn't even rustle the leaves. I stood frozen. I had my rifle but couldn't raise it. That's not fear you can explain. It's primal, bone deep. The thing slinked around the edge of the firelight. I caught just enough of it to know it wasn't a panther. Too tall. Its back was arched like a cat, but it stood on 2 legs part of the time. I swear, it would drop to all 4s, then rise up like a man. Its fur was patchy, mangy almost, and dark like the black mud in a gator hole. But its face, that's what I keep seeing. It looked like a woman. No, not fully. Like a cat with a woman's mouth. Wide, grinning almost. And its eyes, they were too knowing. I did something dumb. I yelled, told it to go on, like it was a dog. It stopped and stared. Then it let out this sound, like a woman laughing and a cat growling all twisted together. I fired a warning shot, not at it, but in the air. And I swear it laughed again. I didn't sleep that night. Packed everything up by dawn and hauled tail back to the truck. On the way, I passed a ranger pulling out of a side road. I flagged him down and asked if there had been any big cats spotted recently. He just gave me this tight smile and said, "Folks see all kinds of things when they're tired." I didn't push it. When I told my grandpa about it, he didn't even blink. Just said, "Wampus Cat." I'd heard that name before, supposedly from Cherokee legend. Woman cursed to wander as a cat for spying on men's rituals. My grandpa said they show up around places the land don't want you, that if you see one, you better leave. Don't follow. Don't track. Don't stay the night. He also told me a story about a trapper back in the 60s who swore he saw something near Chokoloskee, walking upright along the tree line. Said it moved like a cougar, but left human-like prints. That trapper's dogs wouldn't go near that part of the swamp again, refused to hunt it. I've looked into it more since. Found a guy in Apalachicola who says he's been tracking something similar for 10 years. He believes the Wampus Cat is real. Says it's a shapeshifter, a leftover from the old world before man settled Florida. He says they follow certain bloodlines, certain families. I don't know about all that. But I know what I saw. I know it wasn't a panther or a bear. And I know I've never felt that kind of dread before or since. I haven't been back to that camp. I haven't even been south of Immokalee since. I hunt up in Ocala now. It's different woods, different feel. But sometimes, when I'm walking a trail alone and the woods go quiet, I get that feeling again. Like it's watching. And so, another strange encounter fades away. A trick of the mind, or something far more unsettling. That's for you to decide. Thank you so much for watching my stories. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Your support is what keeps this channel going.